On April 30th of 2024, Kendrick Lamar would change the level of what we know as a hip-hop battle rap song forever with the release of Euphoria. This roughly 6.5-minute diss record that was just straight bars, no hooks, no choruses, no bridges, a couple of disrespectful chants, but for the most part, this was full-on display of what MCing is at the highest level. Included were rhyme patterns, flow switches, impressions, wordplay, metaphors and similes, portmanteaus, direct references, inferences, subtext, and symbolism. Kendrick will use these literary and performance tools to dismantle one of the biggest hip-hop stars to ever exist in Aubrey Drake Graham, to set up what is now going down in history as the greatest battle in hip-hop history. Though the culture has had many great diss records of the past, Hit 'Em Up by Tupac, Ether by Nas, No Vaseline by Ice Cube, I See the Bitch in You by Common Sense, and so many others, all displayed the greatness of hip-hop rapping and MCing as a whole. But like the NBA in the 90s, Kendrick came through with Euphoria like he was MJ and changed the game forever. And though it doesn't have the commercial success of the hit record Not Like Us, which was the song that was the nail in the coffin in this battle, released by Kendrick Lamar and a legendary hit in its own right, from a hip-hop perspective and a creativity perspective, Euphoria is a song that stands above the rest. Now, Kendrick starts with the disses before he even starts rapping with the title of the song, the date it was dropped, and the cover art for the single, which features the definition of the word euphoria, a feeling of well-being or elation. Now, the two examples of the word being used in a sentence could be seen as predictions for the battle, whereas the first sentence being apparently it is a change in mood and the feeling of euphoria and reduced anxiety that prompts people to start using this dangerous drug. Now, that could be seen as a veiled reference to some of the accusations Kendrick levied against Drake in the later released dark diss record Meet the Grams. Now, when you get into the etymology of the word euphoria from the late 17th century, it is denoting the well-being produced in a sick person by the use of drugs. The second sentence, an example, they almost had a week to recover from the euphoria of Tuesday's series-winning victory, could be seen as Kendrick claiming victory as this song was released on a Tuesday. And speaking of it being released on a Tuesday, the hit song Up on a Tuesday by former OVO member I Love Meckonin was a song featuring Drake and a song that led to I Love Meckonin leaving the label under suspicion of a bunch of rumors and controversy. Now, Tuesday is also Mars Day in honor of the Roman god of war. So it was going up on a Tuesday and Kendrick was starting the war with Drake on a Tuesday. Now, at a basic level, Kendrick naming the song Euphoria is Kendrick giving the fans the feeling of euphoria by finally dropping his response to Drake. The definition also declares the impact the song would have as Kendrick declared victory over Drake and shifted the culture back into its proper direction. Now, Euphoria is also, of course, the name of the executive produced HBO television show about high school teens who are, let's just say, depicted in very adult situations, which also leads in the future accusations levied towards Drake in this battle by Kendrick. Now, the actual date of the release, April 30th, is National Honesty Day, and Kendrick ends the first part of the record saying, "Don't tell no lie about me, and I won't tell truths about you," which is a callback to a line that he repeatedly used in The Heart Part 4, which was the prequel record to the album Damn. Now, when we get to the intro, Kendrick plays a phrase from the movie The Wiz by Richard Pryor, who played Oz, in which he states, "Everything they say about me is true." Now, playing it in reverse immediately intrigues fans into finding out exactly what was being said and galvanizes a certain amount of interest into the record right before Kendrick even starts to rap. Now, using the Wizard of Oz and using the great and powerful Oz as an archetype for Drake would not only set up disses in this record, but also the future records Kendrick would release during the battle. Now, as we can see on the screen, Oz represents a figure of authority and power, often viewed as a wizard with magical abilities. However, Oz's power is largely an illusion, as he is portrayed as a con artist who deceives the people of Oz to gain their respect and control. Now, you can replace Oz with hip-hop culture, and then you have the narrative Kendrick is painting and pointing out about Drake as the wizard. This character highlights themes of illusions versus reality, the allure of power, and the importance of self-discovery. Now, just think about the messaging in Meet the Grams, and especially the third verse, the Atlanta verse, and Not Like Us. Now, the sample used for the intro part, which is nice, slow, and melodic, is a sample from a song by Teddy Pendergrass called My Latest and Greatest Inspiration, which would describe Drake as the reason for Kendrick reaching this level of creativity as he would in this song and the next 3 diss songs that he would release within the span of a week. Now, Teddy Pendergrass, due to a car accident, was also bound to a wheelchair for the latter part of his life. Now, Drake, an actor on the TV show Degrassi, played a character who was also bound to a wheelchair in the character Jimmy Brooks. And speaking of Drake being an actor, let's get into the bars from the intro. Now, them superpowers get neutralized. I can only watch in silence. The famous actor we once knew is looking paranoid and now spiraling. You're moving just like a degenerate. Every antic is feeling distasteful. I can calculate, you're not as calculated. I can even predict your angles. Fabricating stories on the family front because you heard Mr. Morale, a pathetic master manipulator. I can smell the tails on you now. Kendrick here is not only referencing some of the things Drake was doing leading up to the battle, and while he was waiting for Kendrick to drop, like releasing the tailor-made freestyle where he used AI to sample the voices of Tupac, who was deceased, and Snoop Dogg, who are 2 legends, West Coast legends, and inspirations to Kendrick Lamar. He was also using Twitter bots to keep Kendrick Lamar's name when searched and trending, full of insults where you couldn't really see what Kendrick was up to or if he was posting anything. Whenever you searched his name, you would just get insults about Kendrick. They filled the timeline for almost a week. So these are the distasteful antics that Kendrick is alluding to. Now, as we know in the future, more antics will follow, with Drake filing lawsuits and things like that. Very distasteful from an artist to artist standpoint, especially in a hip hop battle. Now, when Kendrick refers to being able to predict what Drake's angles would be against him and using the math and geometry terms as double entendres, either through the mold Kendrick may have had in Drake's camp or just through the Whitney bar from Drake's initial diss song Push-Ups, Kendrick would set the stage to let Drake know that he understands exactly where he's going to try to attack him during this battle. This would be the first of many warnings where Kendrick, unlike most in the past, gave Drake the opportunity to protect himself from how much damage this battle could do by Kendrick letting Drake know that not only do I know how you're coming at me, but I have a lot to reveal about you. This is also what he means by smelling the tails on Drake, as in tails as in tall tales, lies, but also it can be seen as a shot at Drake's affinity for strippers and maybe other females who can be seen as a little unsavory. Kendrick would also lean into this angle throughout the battle. So when he says smelling tails, it could literally mean smelling someone's tail. You get my drift. So this leads into the second half of the intro. You're not a rap artist, you're a scam artist with the hopes of being accepted. Tommy Hilfiger stood out, but FUBU's never been your collection. I make music that electrify him, you make music that pacify him. I can double down on that line, but spare you this time, that's random acts of kindness. Know you a master manipulator and habitual liar too, but don't tell no lies about me, and I won't tell truths about you. Now, these bars go right into the crux of the Wizard of Oz reference. As Tommy Hilfiger was the owner of a clothing brand that became popular in hip-hop culture, expressed his disdain for people of a certain demographic in hip-hop culture wearing his clothes. He was happy to collect their money, but he did not feel that they gave the right aesthetic to the brand and the way he wanted the brand to be presented. Now, these feelings came from Mr. Hilfiger all after hip-hop played a big part in popularizing his brand and enriched him very much. Now, juxtapose that to the FUBU brand, for us, by us, owned by people of the culture, of hip-hop culture, that were more than proud to be represented by fans and artists of the art form. Now, when Kendrick goes into the reference of making music that electrify him versus making music that pacify him, and he says I can double down on that line, he's not only referring to the types of music he makes, which is more thought-provoking, as opposed to the music that Drake makes, which is more self-aggrandizing and materialistic. This is also a reference to the angle that Drake may have an affinity for young women by using the term pacify as in pacifier. We know what that reference is. And then the random acts of kindness line is also a reference to Drake's video God's Plan, which is one of his biggest hit records to date. Now, those last 2 lines, Master Manipulator and Habitual Liar 2, of course, are direct references tying Drake to the archetype of the Wizard of Oz. And now that that archetype is set, Kendrick gets into the more direct disses in the record. It starts to extremely flex his rapping and performance ability on the microphone. Let's get into it. So first, before I start with the lyrics, I want to highlight how Kendrick uses vocal inflection and kind of vocal acting to convey certain moods and modes when he's rapping. In this part, when he starts the sped up part of the verses, he's rapping in a way that he rapped in the song You from To Pimp a Butterfly, where he was simulating being drunk or drinking. Now, in the song You, it had a more somber tone, but in this song and in these verses, it's a more of a crash out tone, and it adds emphasis to the messaging within the bars. So he starts out verse 1, yeah, I'm out the way, yeah, I'm low, okay, yeah, the island right here's remote, okay, I ain't thinking about no reaper, nigga, I'm reaping what I sow, okay, got a Benjamin and a Jackson all in my house, like I'm Joe, okay. We'll stop right there as first Kendrick starts to describe the difference between he and Drake as from a maturity standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint, and from an approach to their career standpoint, as Kendrick receives criticism from many Drake fans and artists like Drake himself for being a more mature and grounded individual. Kind of weird, but it's what happens. Now, when he says he's not thinking about no reaper, that is not only a reference to Kendrick living his life and not worrying about his demise, but also it could be a reference to the rapper J. Cole, who bowed out of the battle after dissing Kendrick, who refers to himself as the Reaper on one of his more famous feature verses on the record Johnny P's Caddy by rapper Benny the Butcher. Now, the next line, the triple entendre of got a Benjamin and a Jackson all in my house like I'm Joe, okay, is very complex. Now, it's not only a shot at Drake, who refers to himself as hip-hop's Michael Jackson, and the song he wrote about a mouse that he befriended growing up in his home, his father being Joe, and the mouse's name was Ben, but is also a reference to American historical figures Benjamin Franklin and Andrew Jackson, who both appear on Money and have paintings in the White House, which will be the house of the current president at the time, Joe Biden. So the names Benjamin, Jackson, and Joe have three different meanings for three different people all at the same time. Crazy writing. Kendrick then switches his focus to now dissing Drake directly. Hellcat made his homeboys and them type sell they soul, okay. Everybody wanna be demon till they get chipped by a throwaway, and I might do a show a day. Once a lame, always a lame. Oh, you thought the money, the power, the fame would make you go away. Have you ever played? Have you ever? Okay, nigga, let's play. Have you ever walked your enemy down like with a poker face? Have you ever paid 500,000 like to an open case? Well, I have, and I failed at both, but I came out straight. Now, Kendrick references Drake as a Hellcat, and he would keep this theme going throughout the rest of the record. Now, on the screen, you see the versions of the Hellcat references Kendrick will be making. As you notice, the lady in the devil outfit is grabbing her tail. The earlier reference in the intro where he says, I can smell the tails on you now, is now coming back in this reference once again. And Kendrick is now going to further explain why he sees Drake as a Hellcat or a demon of an individual. Now, the word demon also happens to be very close to the rapper Future's middle name, which is Demon. I guess that's how you pronounce that. Future claims that Drake wanted to be like him. And of course, Kendrick had a feature on the album We Don't Trust You, which was pretty much an album dissing Drake, which was the preemptive strike in Kendrick responding to First Person Shooter, a record where Drake and J. Cole threw subs at Kendrick, and if you know the history, that was the start of this battle. Now, being chipped by a throwaway, of course, a throwaway is a weapon used to harm somebody in a crime that you can easily discard. Now, the throwaway Kendrick is referring to is a verse that he recorded for the song Element from the Damn album that did not actually appear on the album, but was leaked after the album's release. Now, Kendrick took aim at Drake and other rappers who have been sneak dissing him on that verse. You can see a breakdown of that song on this here channel. Now, when he continues, and I might do a show a day, that's of course a reference to Drake being on the Degrassi television show, as I mentioned in the intro. That's why he then follows with Once a Lame, Always a Lame, and the show Kendrick is talking about is him releasing a record every day during this battle. Then when he continues, oh, you thought the money, the power of fame would make you go away. Go away has a double meaning, because not only does it mean make the lame image that Drake had as the character on Degrassi and who Drake was growing up go away, but also it could take the direct meaning of go a way, as in make Drake's life and image go a certain way now that he has money, fame, and power. And my voice is going away as I say that. Kendrick then gets to playing the game Have You Ever, in which he names things that Drake may have been guilty of in the past. There are rumors that he did have to pay $500K to a SA case, and that he also may have ties for paying for other kinds of street activity towards other artists. So when you read those lyrics, you have to read them as though he is speaking as Drake. Now, the poker face line also could be a callback to Drake posing in blackface for what Drake said was I believe a school project or some kind of art project, which was revealed by Pusha T in his battle with Drake in the cover art for the story of Adidon. This again is another Wizard of Oz reference, as the great and powerful Oz was a man hiding behind a mask. Kendrick would then continue into digging into Drake's fake persona and character. I hate when a rapper talks about guns, then somebody dies, they turn into nuns and hop online like pray for my city. He faking for likes and digital hugs. His daddy a killer, he wanna be junior. They must have forgot the ish that they done. Dementia must run in his family, but let it get shaky. I'll park his son. Now these lines are in reference to Drake's not only street ties, but fake street persona. Again, the mask. It is also a hit at the people who helped Drake put on the mask, so to speak, and give him street cred. These lines can apply to Baby and Lil Wayne, the leaders of Young Money Cash Money, the first record label Drake was really signed to, or they can apply to Jazz and Jay Prince, who was Drake's original management team, and I believe they still have some hand in his management to this day. So when Kendrick refers to his daddy a killer, he wanna be junior, they must have forgot the ish that they done, that could apply to either duo or both. Again, these are just rap lyrics. They don't have to be based in reality. We are not trying to directly indict anybody on records. Let's continue. Now, the last line, the dementia must run in his family, but let it get shaky, I'll park his son. So he's not only making a diss towards who Drake thinks he is, maybe he's suffering from dementia, believing he is his character, but it could also be seen as a diss towards Drake's OGs that I just mentioned, and also Drake's actual father, and Kendrick would hint on that more and hit on that more in the diss track Meet the Grams. And of course, Parkinson and Parkinson's disease is a double meaning in wordplay, which Kendrick will continue in the next few lines. Let's go. The very first time I shot me a Drake, the homie had told me to aim it this way. I didn't point down enough today. I'll show you I learned from those mistakes. Somebody had told me you got a ring on God. I'm ready to double the wage. I'd rather do that than let a Canadian ninja make Pac turn in his grave. Now, the last part there is a simple reference again to that tailor-made freestyle record where Drake inappropriately used Tupac's voice, but it's also a reference to Drake owning one of Tupac's rings that was put up for auction or for sale after Tupac's death. Now, going back to how he started this part of the verse, we get back into the triple meanings again. The line, the very first time I shot me a Drake, means three things at one time. Of course, it means directly taking shots at Drake. When he says the homie had told me to aim it this way, a Drake or a Draco is a type of firearm. And a Drake is also a male duck, and we know people go duck hunting. Now, a duck in street terminology is also another name for a lame person. So that group of bars, that small group of bars, applies to all three of those things, really all four of those things. So again, next level lyricism and rapping. Now, the next few lines are pretty straightforward, but when we come down a little bit, and Kendrick says, I love him to death, and in 8 bars, I'll explain that phrase. He goes on to directly describe exactly why he feels this way towards Drake and J. Cole, and then the YNW Melly part that he ends with, I pray they're my real friends, if not, I'm YNW Melly, refers to the rapper YNW Melly being known for allegedly unaliving a couple of his friends and then writing a song about it. And again, during this part, Kendrick switches his flow to mimic that of Megan Thee Stallion, the star female rapper who also had some issues going back and forth with Drake with subliminal disses. So that also references the "it's no accent you could sell me," as Drake is also known for faking a lot of accents depending on which part of the country he's in or which part of the world he's in for that matter. Again, leading into somebody wearing a mask. Now, the language barriers bar is a reference to a song by Drake called The Language from the album Nothing Was the Same, in which Drake took a lot of sneak disses and veiled shots at Kendrick Lamar in response to the Control verse. Then as he continues, I don't like you popping ish at Pharrell for him I inherit the beef. F all that pushing P, let me see you push a T. All of us real hip hop fans know about the beef between Drake, Pharrell, and Pusha T. So I'm just gonna keep it pushing and continue. So now Kendrick goes back to again warning Drake about how he should approach this battle. As he starts, we ain't gotta get personal, this a friendly fade. You should keep it that way. I know some shit about niggas that'll make Gunna wanna look like a saint. Now Gunna, a member of YSL, which is the rap collective under Young Thug, one of Drake's friends. Gunna Wanna was accused of snitching on Young Thug. So Kendrick is saying he knows things about Drake that will make Gunna snitching look very light. And then he channels his inner DMX and names all the things that not only shows the difference between he and Drake from a character standpoint, but just the reasons that he just doesn't like Drake to begin with. Of course, he starts with jokes. I hate the way that you walk, talk, dress. But then when he gets to I hate the way that you sneak this, if I catch flight, it's going to be direct. Again, warning Drake about the tone of the battle, right? Then when he says, we hate the bitches you fuck because they confuse themselves with real women, that's going back to, again, the Tails line from the intro, the Hellcat references, and he's going to get more into that as he continues this part of the record. Then he continues with the I'm what the culture feeling. How many more fairy tales do you feel like that we had enough? How many more black features do you feel like that you black enough? Again, going back to the Mask reference. I like Drake with the melodies. I don't like Drake when he act tough. Mask reference. We gonna make a nigga bring back Puff. Let me see if Chubbs really crashed something. Now that's a reference to a situation where Puff Daddy slapped Drake and his security did not protect him, i.e. Chubbs. So all of this, again, is talking about that character, that fake gangster persona, which in many ways is not only a challenge to Drake, but also a challenge to the fans and the listener as to how are we falling for this with all this evidence to the contrary. Then he gets into a career comparison, which also has a lot of subliminal shots about Drake as a person, yet again, that a lot of people didn't know about, right? So then he says, yeah, my first one, like my last one, is a classic. You don't have one, speaking about their albums. Then he gets into the triple entendres and metaphors again. Let your core audience stomach that. Then tell them where you get your abs from. V12 is a fast one. Bow, 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 last one. Headshot for the year. You better walk around like Daft Punk. Now, first of all, let your core audience stomach that, then tell them where you get your abs from. This goes back to the Hellcat reference yet again. Now, V12, a Hellcat, of course, is a car which is pictured above. The V12 is the horsepower of that vehicle. V12 is also the horsepower of a liposuction machine. So when he says, of course, tell him where you get your abs from, he's talking about Drake getting maybe some form of liposuction or cosmetic surgery on his abs and on his body, like a female, aka stripper, aka Hellcat, would get, which would represent Drake's core audience, at least according to Kendrick, which it is, but let's continue. So when he says it's a fast one and he says bow, 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 Sexy Red, who Drake has collaborated with on many occasions, represents the type of woman, or at least her persona represents the type of woman Kendrick is talking about. That is Drake's core audience, which would be kind of a Hellcat type female in this reference. Now, when he says headshot for the year, you better walk around like Daft Punk. Now, Daft Punk is a group that wears kind of motorcycle space helmets, right? So he's telling Drake to protect his head. But the word daft means to be silly, foolish, and stupid. Again, which would describe not only how Kendrick is depicting Drake, but also the type of females that Drake's core audience represents. Or at least that's what Kendrick is saying. Again, we hate the bitches you fuck because they confuse themselves with real women. All of that ties in together. So am I making my case for this being the best diss record? I think so, but we're not done, so let's continue. So Kendrick continues to again highlight the differences between he and Drake as he continues a top dog who the F they think they playing with. Extortion my middle name soon as you hop up off of that plane. I'm allergic to the lame shit. Only you like being famous. Yachty can't give you no swag neither. I don't give a fuck about who you hang with. So in those bars, Kendrick is really putting the gangster persona on the table with a little bit of real talk, so to speak, right? As far as just, friendly rhyming veiled threats. I'll just put it that way. Now, when he speaks to the Lil Yachty, not giving Drake any swag either. Swag can also be synonymous with the wearing of a rag, a do-rag, or a flag. And we're going to leave that right there. If you know, you know. So then he repeats that I hate the way that you walk, talk, and dress. Then he says, surprised you wanted that feature request. You know we got some ish to address. I even hate when you say the word nigga, but that's just me, I guess. Some shit just cringe-worthy. We ain't even got to be deep, I guess. Now, I'm not going to explain those bars. I'm just going to play this.
It was somebody that I was like, I used to see out and be like, yo, that's that nigga, you know what I'm saying?
And yes, that is Drake. And yes, he did really stick the landing on the R when he said that word. But let's continue. So Kendrick goes on to kind of play a little bit of a psychological game with not only Drake, but the listener. When he says, still love when you see success. Everything with me is blessed. Keep making me dance, wave my hands, and it won't be no threat. I'm knowing they call you the boy, but where's the man? Because I ain't even seen him yet. Matter of fact, I ain't even bleed him yet. Can I bleed him back? So he gives him a little praise, but he's about to quickly snatch it away and get even more disrespectful. Let's continue. Now he goes back, in my opinion, to the Megan Thee Stallion flow again, When I see you stand by sexy red, I believe you see two bad bitches. I believe you don't like women. It's real competition. You might pop fast with them. Let's speak on percentage. Show me your splits and I'll make sure I double back with you. You were signed to a nigga that was signed to a nigga that said he was signed to that nigga. Now, if we go to the first part of the song, right? Not the slow intro, but when he first turns it up. This is in the same order and structure as that. The disses are pretty much the same. The Hellcat, made his homeboys and them type sell they soul. Okay, he's talking about the same thing. The sexy red is referring to the Hellcat. The speak on percentage is talking about made his homeboys and them type sell they soul. Then when he gets in, you assigned to a nigga that's signed to a nigga, that's the same thing. And the same references to his daddy a killer. He wanna be junior, he must have got the shit that they done. He's talking about the same people in those references in relation to Drake. So then he goes into, again, Drake's business practices with the cease and desist on the Like That record and back to back I Like That record, etc. But then when we go down to Kendrick, again, highlighting the differences between the two, when he talks about y'all think my life is rap, that's whole shit, I got a son to raise, but I can see you don't know nothing about that or dot. This is where Kendrick starts in this whole section to play with the portmanteaus, which is saying a word in a way and playing with the pronunciation where it can mean two things and you have to figure out exactly which one he's talking about or if he's talking about both. In a way, he's talking about both throughout this because he's saying you don't know nothing about that and you don't know nothing about dot, right? Because before that, he references trying to get dirt on niggas, right? Talking about himself. But he's also in a way letting Drake know, I know that's what you're trying to do. You have money in the street trying to get dirt on me. I don't have time for that. There's enough information about you that is already known that I can use. I don't need it. This was also a preface, now we know, to the record Meet the Grams that Kendrick had ready for Drake if he did take it personal. Because Kendrick is alluding to him not knowing how to teach his son. And we know that in Meet the Grams, Kendrick volunteered for the position to teach his son all the things that he names throughout this part of the verse. So now we get to, and I haven't even mentioned the beat switches. Through every one of these, there was a beat switch. But let's get into the flow switch again. He speeds it up. And again, he continues with the portmanteaus throughout these bars. So he says, it ain't a 20v1, it's a 1v20. If I gotta smack ninjas that right with you, yeah, bring them out too. I clean them out too. Tell Beam that he gotta stay right with you. Am I battling a ghost or AI? Nigga feeling like Joe Hale Osteen. Funny, he was in a movie called AI, and my sixth sense telling me to off him. I'm a blick niggas all in the coffee. Now, there was a lot of controversy over this part of the record when, first of all, he messes up the name, or it seems as though he messes up the name Haley Joel Osment, and he mixes it up with Joel Osteen, the preacher. This is done on purpose. The same thing when he says, tell Beam that he better stay right with you. When you listen to the record, I don't care how many times you listen to it, you can't tell whether he's saying Beam with an M or Bean with an N. When in all actuality, he's saying both and the lines would match both situations. Okay, now Beam with an M is a Jamaican rapper and artist and a ghostwriter for Drake. Bean with an N is the nickname for Kobe Bryant, right? So when he says, am I battling a ghost or AI, ghost as in ghostwriter, AI as in artificial intelligence, but also AI as in Allen Iverson, and ghost as Kobe Bryant, who had passed away. Now, both Kendrick and Drake were big fans of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant had relationships with both, as you can see on the screen. Drake had a special jacket made of Kobe Bryant. He also had a shrine to Kobe in his home. He has a lot of weird shrines in his home to artists, Tupac, Kendrick, Kanye, a lot of people. I go over that in the video I did on the Tootsie Slide video, Hidden Meanings. You can check that video out to understand exactly what I mean there. But Kobe, in many interviews, said that Kendrick was his favorite rapper and reminded him of himself the most. And speaking of that jacket that Drake had made, he gave that jacket to Steph Curry after Kobe's passing, which I don't know, is kind of weird considering he has the shrine in his house, but Drake's weird. I'm not gonna get into the conspiracy stuff, but he does a lot of weird things. But getting back to the double meaning. So when he says Joel Hale Osteen, he's combining the two names, right? Now, Haley Joel Osment, the actor, was in the movie Sixth Sense as well as AI. So then he's talking, my sixth sense is telling me to off him. And then he says, I'm a blick niggas all in the coffin. Now, he's saying coffin, but the way he's stretching the word, not only to make it rhyme, but he's combining coffee and caffeine, so to speak, right? Now, Joel Osteen and his church is known for giving its members coffee for crazy expensive tithes. This is a picture of the little coffee set that they hand out. And he's known for giving out these weird coffee mugs with these platitudes on them, which he's also criticized for bending the words of the Bible. Now, this is not coming from me. This is coming from other people who don't like him, but they equate him to being somewhat of a demon. I didn't say that. I do know during the hurricane in Houston, he didn't let those people in the church that were stranded, but I'm not calling the man any names personally. I don't know enough about him. I'm just referring to what was the word on the streets in the church. And I think that's what Kendrick is bending those words and using the references for. So when he continues, OVO niggas is dick riders, tell them run to America to imitate heritage, but they can't imitate this violence. Again, now he's been referring to Drake imitating violence and pretending to be tough throughout the whole thing. Now he's including the whole crew in that as well. And again, the culture vulture references throughout, the wearing of the face, the wearing of the mask, the wearing of the black face, being eyes, all of that is being tied up at the end. So what does Kendrick do now? He flips that and he's going to pretend to be where Drake is from, right? So then he starts, what I learned is ninjas don't like the West Coast, but I'm fine with it. I'll push the line with it. Pick a nigga off one at a time with it. We can be on a 3-hour time difference. He's going to travel to Toronto, which is 3 hours away from California. So then he imitates a Toronto person. Don't speak on the family, Crody. It can get deep in your family, Crody. Talk about me and my family, Crody. Someone gonna bleed in your family, Crody. Again, another warning of where Drake should keep the battle. Also, a hint to Kendrick knowing what Drake plans on talking about. All the way from the slow intro. Now he's finishing the song, saying the same thing, giving Drake the same hint that whether it be through push-ups or through the mole in your camp, I know what you're going to talk about. And I'm advising you for one last time not to do it, right? And then he gives Drake a hint to some things that he may know about him. Again, I know some things about ninjas that make Gunna wanna look like a saint, right? So he says, someone gonna bleed in your family, Crody. I be a new hoe king eating fried rice with the dip sauce and the blammy, Crody. Tell him you're cheesing, fam. We can do this right now in the camera, Crody. Now, Drake is famous for saying that he studies battle rap. So Kendrick offers him, an easy way out. Let's do it in front of a camera for real. Let's battle, right? This is something you claim to be comfortable with. But if you do what you were planning to do, which is the family thing, there's going to be real problems, right? And New Ho King is a restaurant, Chinese restaurant in Toronto where Drake was robbed before. So all of those veiled references and disses, so to speak, I won't say threats, but disses, because Drake is suing out here, is all culminated in the last few lines, in the last 2 lines, where Kendrick says, if you take it there, I'm taking it further. Then he whispers to him, that's something you don't want to do. And then ends with the chant, we don't want to hear you say nigga no more. And if you forgot, here's the video again.
Somebody that I was like, I used to see out and be like, yo, that's that nigga, you know what I'm saying? He's doing this.
And yes, that is indeed why this became what the culture was feeling, and the record Not Like Us became the smash that it did. All of this was set up by this song, Euphoria. None of the songs work. Meet the Grams, Not Like Us, 616 LA, to the degree that they do without the way Kendrick set them up in this record. This record is perfect for a battle record, in my opinion. It is indeed why I believe this record is the greatest battle record in hip-hop history.